Welcome back. You're watching France 24 and a special debate brought to you from Davos in cooperation with the World Economic Forum on youth unemployment. And we're going to hone in, we're going to pick up where we left, we're going to hone in on the solutions now, what we can do to prevent a lost generation in Europe. Laszlo Andor, you mentioned before that the youth guarantee that you are pushing in the European Union. You want governments to get young people either a job or an internship or further education within 4 months of being unemployed. How would this work in real life?
Well, first of all, we have to say that this also would have cost, and we would need to invest in this, but it would be a perfect social investment because the costs of non-action are very high. We calculated that annually it's about 150 billion euros, which is the loss because of leaving this generation on the streets and out of job or training. The cooperation of public employment services, private agencies, social partners should be able to produce these offers. And then, just like in Austria or Finland, if someone alone doesn't find a job, this would be certainly guaranteed. This would be very important for the security of employment for the young people to help making the first steps on the labour market and prepare a more successful career.
Jonathan Teklu, do you think will that work?
I'm not so sure. But I can't really judge it. I can just give you my point of view from an innovation point of view, an entrepreneurial point of view. I think what Maurice was saying before, that growth is really the thing that can create jobs. And I think this is the only thing that can create jobs.
Just taking it back to the youth guarantee, do you think it's a step in the right direction, Shannon Burrow?
Without doubt. You have to start, though, where Jonathan just left off. You have to invest in jobs. And growth ought to be job-centred growth. We've seen 30 years almost now of increasingly jobless growth, and we have to turn that around.
But what do you say? What do you mean when you say invest in jobs? What does that mean
specifically?
Well,
we know we built economies. All the countries of Europe built their own economies. They know by investing in infrastructure, they know by investing in the services that give people community dignity, they know by investing in new technologies, education, all of those things, that you can build economies. We haven't seen good industry policy because we've been frightened about protectionism. We haven't got the balance between free trade and industry policy that drives new innovation, that gives business confidence. That's a debate we want to have. Mm-hmm. We've got $25 trillion of workers' money invested in the global economy. We want it out of speculative markets and into real economy work, into work where we know that through the transition to the green economy, all sorts of infrastructure requirements, we can build those jobs soon.
Maurice Levy, Shannon Burrow basically wants big business to pay up. Are you ready to pay up? Sorry, I'm paraphrasing there, I know.
Okay, I think that there are some approximation what has been said. For example, internship. We have people who are begging to be interned, and we say, we are closed, we have no room. Please take us. And it is a burden very often for corporations to take internship because we want to help, and at the same time we need somebody who knows to be with this person and to train that person. So I think we should be very cautious about that. And at the end of the day, it is extremely helpful because it gives a first experience. But if we look at the solutions, everything obviously starts with growth, and we all agree on that. And if there is no growth, there will be no job. How can we create the conditions for job creation and for regenerating growth when most of the European countries, and we are speaking mostly about Europe, are broke? And they have a huge level of debt, and they have a huge deficit. And the first thing that they have to fix is the deficit, and we have to pass through a few years, which will be extremely difficult. But as long as we don't fix these issues, this will be a long-term problem, because there will be an implosion one day if we don't fix the issue of debt and deficit.
Rajiv Dave.
So I think businesses really fundamentally need to remodel their forms of recruitment. And what we see right now is heads of recruitment are effectively heads of rejection. They are rejecting the vast majority of people that are applying to them. And it is not their fault because they're faced with thousands of applications. But what I would like to see businesses do is what we're calling unrecruitment, where the whole model of recruitment is based around training and development, so that we can, for every person that applies for a job, how can you make sure that everyone leaves better off in the process? So even though one person will get the job, 99 people can be benefited through the training and development that you do through the process of recruiting someone. So rather than just filter and eliminate people out based on your institution or your grades, let's be a bit more inclusive and let's not see skills development as a CSR activity, but really bring it into the recruitment process. I also want to pick up on the point of internships, and I know it's a contentious subject, but I should say that having seen, we work with over 4,000 businesses, a lot of these are startups and SMEs, and they say to us, and a majority of them do pay, but in some cases, they might start off as an expenses-only intern, but within a few weeks, the young people make themselves indispensable and they create their own job. And when we ask the company, would that have existed without that experience, they'd say no, because they're not willing to take the risk of hiring someone straight away. And so that's effectively, the internship acts as a try before you buy approach to talent, and then therefore the young person has the opportunity to prove themselves, and as Maurice says, it gives them the first foot on the ladder.
That's a good thing, but you've got to have some boundaries, because we've seen people who've had 6, 8, 10 more internships, and they are more devastated than when they came out of universities. Internships are usually for highly skilled individuals. So we have interns ourselves, so we're certainly not opposed to that. But what you have to have is boundaries. Where is the situation where that's a good program around inclusion, and those who would exploit workers without pay, without a mix of the social security, and we could look at that by negotiation. Maurice is absolutely right. We can solve these problems together, but if you've got a social protection system and that translates into part wage subsidies for employers who are employing internships genuinely on an agreed basis, why not? That's a good thing.
I just want to pick up on something that Maurice was referring to before and put this question to Laszlo Andor. Maurice was saying that at some point or another, unions and employers' organisations, maybe they should just agree to get along, and perhaps governments should get out of the picture. What do you say about that?
Well,
are governments perhaps an impediment at this stage?
We certainly advocate the social dialogue on all levels, on company level, sectoral level, national level, and the EU level. But the governments play a strong role, not least because there is a need for policy consistency, connecting the education, training policies with what is happening in the labour market. And there is also a need for a European dimension. Because it's true that we can work for competitiveness and growth, and we also need to work for youth-specific schemes like the Youth Guarantee in the member states, because the young generation is less experienced and more vulnerable, so we need to pay special attention, provide special assistance. But the European dimension is this. We have enormous imbalances in the EU, which means that some countries actually have huge amounts of vacancies, and other countries have very large numbers of unemployed youth. We also need to connect this through better mobility, supporting those who want to find a job not necessarily in their own home environment, but maybe in another country, learning other foreign languages, and have access to more dynamic labour markets, not just wait until all Spain will experience a recovery, but right now, or very quickly, have a job in Germany or Denmark.
You're saying more mobility. We should all move to Germany, basically. That
Not exactly.
Shannon Burrow, what's your thinking?
Well, I think that governments are indispensable. I agree with Maurice that the social partners have a very serious role, and the B20 and the L20, the labour business construct with the G20 meetings, we have agreements. We have agreements around employment, around rights, around social protection, around coherence. And we've said that our priorities last year in Mexico are investment. Let's look at the investment question that is job related. Let's get the multiplier rich framework for employment generation rather than simply an economic analysis. But we've also said in the meantime, we want to work together, and the French minister has offered an operationalising meeting of business and labour with, we hope, the OECD and the ILO in France in April to see how we can scale up apprenticeships, including international apprenticeships, as the Commissioner says. So a tripartite environment is necessary if you're going to have the regulation, if you're actually going to have the youth guarantees that include social protection, but that's not walking away from Morris's challenge, which is also our challenge. The third area we haven't touched on is the informal economy. There's a lot of creativity, innovation, not kind of quite the sort of high-skilled end of the entrepreneurship, but trapped in the desperation of the informal economy. And youth unemployment is driving young people into jobs which are actually withering sustainable business and decent work, because we're not providing the scaffolding of whether it's a minimum wage on which you can live, a social protection floor, the skills, vocational skills environment, or on the a supply side for business, the kind of business regulation, the supporting, the microcredit. We have to tackle that.
If there is a lot of creativity bubbling underneath the surface, Rajib Dey, how do we unleash that? How do we free that?
I think, firstly, it's an awareness-raising exercise where young people should see entrepreneurship as a viable and rewarding career path, because I think, especially at universities, most of the jobs an organisation are exposed to are big corporate organisations, and you think banking, law, consulting, there are certain career paths, and entrepreneurship isn't necessarily showcased to you as a career path that you can go down. And often there's also this stigma that if you're an entrepreneur, it means you didn't get a proper job. And I think we need to challenge that mindset, where actually working for yourself and being an entrepreneur is something that's celebrated and rewarded. But also we should look at practical ways such as mentoring or access to small amounts of capital. We've, in the UK, recently created the Startup Loans programme to give young people small amounts of money to kickstart their ventures. It doesn't really require much. With the advances in technology, when I first started, I was working from home. Everything was remote. You can keep costs low. So we just need to really just give them small amounts of money, a little bit of mentoring, and really showcase entrepreneurship as a viable option.
Maurice Levy, what do you think of that?
I think that we will need probably 200, 300, 400, 500 solutions. Yeah. I don't believe that there is a silver bullet which will solve all our issues. And I would like also to clarify what I'm saying about government. I'm not expecting that government will solve the issue. I just want that they do their job and that we do ours, period. So I'm not saying that they should not be involved, that they should not write the laws, anything which is absolutely indispensable to have a society well organized, because this is the job of the politicians. But we should not turn to them and saying, please solve our problem. If we don't ourselves do what is necessary to solve the problem, yes, we will have a lost generation. But if we invent, help, innovate, create, innovation is not only about new technology or new systems. It is also about new ideas and how to create a new job, how to create new options for people, etc. We have to be innovative in everything we do if we want to solve our problems.
I want to ask you panelists, finally, what you've taken away from this session. Well, if you've learned anything new. Maurice Levy, briefly for us, what are you taking away?
The issue is there. We knew it before. We know it now. And before coming to the meeting, I said, "Okay, I would be very much surprised that we find a solution. But if the discussion can lead to something which will help finding the solution, this would be great." And I think that this panel discussion has helped.
Rajib Dey?
I think having a whole spectrum of perspectives from government, trade unions, employers and startups has been really helpful. And I think in particular that dialogue needs to happen with trade unions and businesses, because right now what we're seeing is that many employers are too scared to take on a young person. There's a lot of grey area about payment and non-payment. So if we can really have that dialogue, as you say, Sharon, we can probably create an environment where more employers would be more receptive to taking on young people.
Well, I'm always inspired by young people who have confidence, skills, and the societal values to say they want to make a difference. I want to thank these two. I think Morris and I can create a pact that goes forward saying business and labour must work together in the interests of solving this problem for sustainable futures, but for our children and grandchildren. And I'm delighted, frankly, that the Commissioner who we work with acknowledges that we haven't acknowledged this problem to date, but now the European Union is, and with his leadership and others, let's get that youth guarantee. Let's make the dialogue happen to see it possible.
All right, we have a new entente cordiale here on stage in Davos between big business and the unions. Momentarily. Jonathan Teklu.
I take away that the problem is way bigger than I've expected. I wasn't really focusing on that, and I find it very interesting that when I think about the companies that they have issues in hiring people, and there are so many unemployed people, there might be some innovation in the field of bringing those two parties together, and I will definitely start thinking about that from now on.
Commissioner Andor.
Well, business and labour are committed to work together. We have a great potential for entrepreneurship. In the European Union, we have to start by fixing the monetary union, fixing the business model, having proper industrial policy and development spread to all regions, and have specific schemes focusing on the unemployed youth, like the youth guarantee, because otherwise this particular generation will not make progress, will not be able to integrate into a prosperous European society.
All right, I'm going to tell you what I'm taking away from this discussion, and that is that growth is central to this issue. Without growth, we're probably not going to be able to resolve this problem. And as part of that growth contract, perhaps we have a new deal between unions and big business. That's good news in my opinion. Also education, the need to tailor-make education and education programs for the needs of the labour market, also to encourage entrepreneurship. That seems to be one of the messages that I've been getting from you 5 panel participants. I want to thank all 5 of you for participating in this discussion. And finally, but certainly not least, I want to thank you at home for watching France 24 and this special debate coming to you from Davos. Stay with us. We have more news coming your way.